have some of the other Lion Learners creatures out here this afternoon. We have a mammal, a reptile, a fish, a bird, an amphibian, and an invertebrate. And you need to guess which is which. So let's have a look at them, and then you can try and have a guessing game. So in here we have Ziggy. Ziggy is a creature called a fire salamander. I think I have just woken Ziggy up. There we go. Wonder what type of creature Ziggy might be. Which one of those groups might he fit into? Let's cover him up for now. We'll come back to Ziggy later. We also have these lovely ladies. This is Twiggy and her friends. They are Phony stick insects. I wonder which one of those groups these girls might fit into. Just going to put their lid on just in case Ziggy wakes up. Any animal eating incidents. We have, with a bit of imagination for this one, this is Jaws. I wonder what type of creature Jaws might be. Obviously Jaws isn't a real creature. However, we didn't have a creature in this group to show you, so Jaws is filling in with a bit of imagination. We also have the very confused Dotty and Daisy, the Japanese quail. They can't quite understand why they're here and not in their run with their friends, but they'll be back in their run very shortly. Which type of creature might Dotty and Daisy be? And then, in a run within a run, because they're pretty small and we don't want them to escape. Hello boys, we have Remy and his little brother Emil, and they are our brand new Guinea Pigs who are hiding under their little house. Let's put their house back down. Whoops. Hello, you can go back in now. And the final creature for our quiz is also hiding. Here she is. This is Rayo. Rayo is a red Flop Tortoise and she loves to be outside on warm days, so that she can do lots and lots of eating, as you can see. So, which one of those creatures do you think might be a bird? Is it Rayo? Is it the guinea pigs? Is it the quail? Is it Jaws? Is it Ziggy? Hi Ziggy, he's awake now. Or Twiggy. Right, if you guessed the quail, you were absolutely spot on. Let's see if I can get Daisy out to say hello. Dotty rather, this one's Dotty. Put the lid down because we don't want Daisy out. Here's Dotty. So, what makes Dotty a bird? Well, of course, her body is covered in feathers. Let's have a good close-up of her feathers. So her feathers keep her lovely and warm, and they're waterproof too. They help to keep her dry. And so that, combined with the energy of her food, helps to keep her body warm, so she's lovely and warm-blooded. She also has a beak just there on her face. 2 feet, just like all other birds. And if she was going to be a mum, she would lay eggs. In fact, Daisy lays eggs most days at the moment. Dotty, rather, this is Daisy. They do look very similar, don't they? They lay eggs most days at the moment anyway, without any chicks inside, because all of my quail are girls. So they lay lovely eating eggs, which I should have brought out to show you, but I didn't think of that at the time. But just like all birds, that's how they would have their babies. Let's lift this up. And you can go back in with your friend. You can hear them calling. They like to be together. There we go. And they don't fly ever so well. Not all birds are good flyers. They spend most of their life on the ground. But if they need to, they can use their wings to leap up like a pheasant to get away from a predator. Okay, so that's our bird. Which one do you think might be a mammal? I think this is the most obvious one. Let me see. I'm going to come in here with them. Rather than bring them out. Oh, you're okay. You're okay. I'm going to get your brother because he's a bit more chilled out than you. There we go. This is Remy. Remy is a guinea pig. And of course, a guinea pig is a mammal because they have this lovely furry coat. So that's what tells us he's a mammal. It keeps him lovely and warm. He is a Swiss cross guinea pig, so he's got quite a thick, fluffy coat. And when Remy was born, his mum had live babies. She didn't lay eggs. So mammals are the main creatures that do that. And she looked after them really well until they were old enough to be away from her. They're 10 weeks old now and they don't need their mum anymore. So they've grown up pretty quickly. But mammal mums are good mums. And their furry coat, combined with all the food they love to eat, they very much love to eat, don't you boys, means that they don't mind the cooler weather at all. They stay nice and warm. So a lot of the year, guinea pigs can have some time outside on the grass, which they like a lot. Right, thank you, Remy. You can go back with your brother and hide. Okay, so we've met the bird and we've met the mammal. Oops, can we see you in there? Just about. Which one is going to be the reptile? Let's see. If you guessed Rayo, you were spot on. Hello, Rayo. She says, oh, I was just hiding and having some food. So Rayo, just like all snakes and lizards and tortoises and turtles, is a reptile. And if I get closer, you can see she has scaly skin on her body. And it's very, very tough, Rayo's scaly skin. You can't see much of her skin because obviously tortoises have this shell that protects them from predators. But on the parts of her body that are not in the shell, you can see that she's got very, very tough, scaly skin. I can touch and it doesn't hurt her. It protects her from both predators and from damage as she's moving around as well. It doesn't let anything in or out, so water doesn't go in or out. She doesn't sweat. She doesn't breathe through her skin like a frog can. She's got very, very tough, scaly skin. And if Rayo was going to be a mum, she would lay some eggs. She wouldn't really look after them or her babies. She'd just bury her eggs and leave them. But all reptiles lay eggs. And even turtles that live in the ocean, they lay eggs on the beach, don't they? That's where their babies hatch out. And she's cold-blooded, which means that she can't be out here in the winter time. But on a nice warm day like today, she does like to be outside. And she actually comes from the Amazon in Brazil. So most reptiles come from warm parts of the world because they don't have the ability to keep their bodies warm. They need to be in a warm environment. So we've met a bird, a mammal, and a reptile. Which one of my creatures is a fish? Well, this was the one I had difficulty with. Let's go back and find Jaws. I'm going to set Jaws with Blizzard. Blizzard's just doing his own thing over here. Jaws is obviously not real, but he's here to represent a shark. I don't actually have any fish living here with me, so I don't have a real fish to show you. But sharks are fish. And one thing that makes a shark a fish is that they spend their whole life under the water. They have gills, they breathe under the water. They don't come up for air at all, like something like a whale or a dolphin might do, which actually look kind of similar to a shark, but they are mammals. So although they hold their breath for quite long periods sometimes, they have to come up and breathe air, whereas sharks don't. They have gills, which makes them a fish. And so they spend their whole entire life in the ocean. And most sharks lay eggs when they have their babies. Not all sharks. Some of them don't quite fit, but most of them do. Right, shall we meet an invertebrate now? Which creature left do you think has no bones? Do you think it's Ziggy? Or do you think it's Twiggy? If you guessed Twiggy, you were right. Let's lift Twiggy up. There we go. So, Twiggy is an invertebrate. That means she has no bones inside, just like all creepy crawlies. She's kind of quite a big invertebrate. Most of the mini beasts that live in Britain stay pretty small, and she actually comes from Malaysia. So she lives in a warm climate. And she's an insect because... Hold on, let me get another one because I don't have an extra arm to get rid of her. Because they have 6 legs. This one only has 5 legs. Oh dear. Sometimes when they're molting their old skin. There we go. Oh, I have a cameraman just come to hold the camera so I can remove the stick insect before she's on my head. There we go. When they're molting their old exoskeleton, they leave legs behind and it will grow back as she grows. But as you can see, Twiggy has 6 legs. So she is an insect, and that's the biggest group of invertebrates. And when these guys are babies, they're pretty soft, a bit like you would imagine a butterfly might be if you pick them up. But now that they're adults, they actually have a hard, tough shell on the outside, so I can stroke her like this, it doesn't hurt her. And that's called an exoskeleton, an outside skeleton. So she's hard and tough, and that holds her together, but also it means that she is protected from predators a little bit as well. She's not as easy to eat as she would be if she was completely soft. Okay, let's put her back in. And when they have babies, they lay eggs. I never found any eggs, but I've had lots and lots of babies arrive here, and these are actually the babies now, so they're quite grown up themselves now. And I think that I probably had at least 100 babies from each of the 2 girls I started off with. So they lay lots and lots of eggs because some of their babies will end up food for other things. Okay, so the very last type of creature that we haven't met is an amphibian. And the only creature we haven't met yet is Ziggy. So that means Ziggy here must be an amphibian. But he kind of looks similar in some ways to Blizzard the lizard, who's just having a little bit of a snuggle with Jaws. Hi, Blizzard. Blizzard is a lizard, which means that he, just like the tortoise, is a reptile. He's got tough, scaly skin, so we can stroke Blizzard and it doesn't hurt him. Nothing goes in and out through his skin, and it's very tough, it protects him. And Blizzard has spent his whole life being a land creature. He came out of an egg, which was laid on land, and he has never been a water creature. In fact, bearded dragons can live quite close to the desert in Australia, so water is not really part of their life at all. But Ziggy is a lot different from that. Ziggy is an amphibian, and that means that he came out of an egg that was laid in the water, and when he was a baby, he was a creature called a water dog, which looks very much like a tadpole, and he had gills, which meant that he was a swimming creature and he breathed under the water. And just like a frog, salamanders like Ziggy undergo changes and they grow lungs. So now he's an air-breathing, land-dwelling creature. In fact, he can't swim at all. Unlike a frog, he doesn't swim, he doesn't go anywhere near the water. He will spend the rest of his life on land. If he was a female, he'd go near the water to lay eggs, and that would be it. That would be the only time he would go anywhere near water. But he does need to stay moist because he's got that special skin that all amphibians have. So he breathes and he drinks through his skin, and it needs to stay wet. So it's lovely and wet inside his tank. And I have put a glove on so that I don't pass anything through his skin and make him ill, because he can drink and breathe through it. And I've just been picking up lots of creatures and I'm out in the garden, so I've made sure that I've got a nice clean glove to pick him up to show you. And so I spray around his tank that he lives in indoors every night so that it stays nice and damp in there for him. And he will sometimes bury under his hide where it's nice and soft, it's nice and moist, and sit almost in a puddle. And that's kind of how he likes to be. They come from Germany and they live in the forests, and they spend a lot of time buried under the leaf litter. So they like to be in quite a cool place where it rains a lot too. So amphibians aren't found in places that are very dry because their skin needs to stay wet all of the time. And they also need somewhere, a pond, a stream, or even just a puddle where they can lay their eggs for the babies to be born in. He's very lively now. He says, "I'm very awake now." He's normally a night creature, but now that we've woken him up, he's feeling very lively, aren't you, Ziggy? Right, so we've met one creature from each of our categories. We've met a mammal, a reptile, a bird, an amphibian, a fish and an invertebrate. Before we finish, I've got an extra bit to the quiz. So, two of these creatures, let me take my glove off. Cover Ziggy's butt up. Two of my creatures are herbivores. So that means that they just eat plants. They never ever eat other creatures, just like this cow. Two of them are carnivores. They are meat eaters. They never ever eat any plants at all, just like this lion, like Lionel the lion, our mascot. And two of them are omnivores. So it means that they eat all sorts of different things. They eat other creatures and they eat plants, just like this grizzly bear does. So I wonder if you can guess which is which. Which of the creatures are herbivores? Which ones are the plant eaters? Well, the first one you might have guessed very easily. Obviously, it's the lovely guinea pigs that are hiding in their house. Guinea pigs are plant eaters. They love to eat grass and hay and vegetables. They never ever eat meat. They never eat other creatures, do you boys? They are just plant-eating creatures. Okay, the second one, you might have guessed when we looked in the tank. Let's come back over here. Is the phony stick insects. They just eat plants too. They spend all their life living in amongst the leaves, and then they eat the leaves that they live on. As pets, they love to eat ivy and brambles, oak leaves, raspberry leaves, things like that. But they just eat leaves, nothing else. They're just leaf eaters, so they are herbivores too. Now, there's another creature here that you might have expected to also be a herbivore, because she's over here eating grass somewhere. Where are you? So, Rayo, you might expect to be a herbivore. Most tortoises are. Almost all tortoises are herbivores, and she does absolutely love to eat grass. She eats lots and lots of plants. But because she comes from the Amazon, she comes across all sorts of other things too. And so she is actually an omnivore. She is a tortoise dustbin. She will eat most things. They don't even necessarily have to be food, so we have to be quite careful. If it fits in her mouth, she will try it. But she does sometimes like to eat insects. And so she isn't entirely a plant eater. She is actually an omnivore. She eats all sorts of different foods. As is our teacher who has decided to retire, Blizzard. Blizzard's still having a snort. Blizzard's made friends, look, with the shark. He's good friends with Rayo, but he seems to like the shark better today. So Blizzard is an omnivore too. But the second omnivore that's part of our quiz is actually Dotty and Daisy. Dotty and Daisy and other quail actually eat a lot of plants. They eat lots of seeds and grasses and leaves. But they will, again, occasionally they'll eat insects, a bit like the tortoise. So they are omnivores. And actually I think I have... Whoops! They don't like the starlings very much. Okay, girls. We won't open the lid. They're not going to come get you. Most of the creatures that we have here actually are omnivores. We've got lots of omnivore creatures, which made it tricky to find some creatures to meet you that weren't this afternoon. So how about carnivores? Well, you might have guessed that little Jaws, the shark, is a carnivore. We know about them being great big carnivores in the ocean that love to eat all sorts of other fish. And they never eat plants, they just eat other fish. So sharks, like Jaws, are carnivores. Obviously, they're much, much bigger than little Jaws is here. But the last one might surprise you. Ziggy, who is desperately wanting to escape now from his tank, he says, I am wide awake, is actually a carnivore too. So we think of carnivores sometimes as being great big creatures like lions and sharks that eat other creatures that are also reasonably large. But Ziggy is a carnivore too. He's little and cute, and he doesn't look like he's going to be. But actually, he just eats other creatures. He likes to eat insects. He likes to eat crickets and worms, and in the wild they'd eat slugs and snails and anything that they could find in the forest. They never eat any plants. So that means that Ziggy is a carnivore just like a shark, even though he's this little cute creature that doesn't look perhaps like he would be. Right, so as Ziggy tries to escape, I think for now we will say goodbye. Where are you going, Ziggy? Oops. Let's put Ziggy back in. And until tomorrow, when you will be starting to learn about habitats, and which is the places that creatures live. So you'll be learning all about a habitat tomorrow and some of the creatures that live there. But for today, goodbye.